I'm going to show some hip flexor stretches, and I'm going to demonstrate on my left side because that's the side that needs it more than the other, although I will do both. So the first one is you're going to come to a half kneeling position, and remember the hip flexors, go from the hip. You have a couple that go from the hip sort of down to the knee, but you also have your iliopsoas, which goes over the front of the hip and attaches to the pelvis and the spine. So when I'm trying to stretch the hip flexor, in fact, I already feel a stretch here. I want to be careful that I'm not arched in my back because I'm not going to get the stretch opening the front of the hip. So what I do is I engage my glutes, and then I sort of lean forward gently to feel the stretch. You could go kind of in and out of that as a gentle warm-up. And like I said, I'm kind of engaging my glute each time. And then if you feel comfortable, you can hold into the stretch to see if it can release. If it's a true length issue, then you have to hold it for longer, like over a minute. But oftentimes when the hip flexors get tight, it's just because they're in tone and they need a reminder to relax. So it's more about just moving in and out of it or holding a gentle stretch until you feel it let go. So that's one. If you notice it going down, like the tightness going down into your leg, then you might also consider doing like a quad stretch here to get the front of the leg to stretch out. And you have to be careful that your bum isn't in the air, so you just gently press your pelvis down. And you could even hold on to your pants or use a belt or something to help with that stretch. Then, for a more sort of intense stretch, which I like to do, I'll go into like a runner's position here. And again, I'm going to get the stretch at the front of the hip. I have my hand on the inside of the other leg, but you could certainly do it on the outside. But since I progress this, I start here, and then I'll lower my knee down, which gets more of a stretch. Again, I have to keep dropping my pelvis down, and then I'll work my way into lowering my elbows down, and then I can kind of rock my pelvis back and forth in here so that I can sometimes get into my inner thigh a little bit too. And of course I'm getting a nice stretch on the other hip as well. So I like to do this one for a kind of global hip opener. Then the inner thigh can be tricky, particularly if you're working against like a hip impingement, because if you're having like a pinchy feeling when your leg is going up, then sometimes working on the inner thigh up here, you're going to aggravate the hip. So you can try just like a little butterfly, letting the legs hang out to the side. Maybe you're going to get a little bit of a stretch there. You want to be careful for any sort of radiating pain, because that's probably not a stretch. That's aggravating the joint. So be cautious with that. I like Happy Baby. Again, if you're dealing with a hip impingement, you're going to have to do a modified one, maybe not pulling in too close. But then you'll start getting like the inner thigh and the hip, and just kind of wiggle through that, seeing what is available for you. You can also like take your legs open, or maybe be on the wall with your arms open if you have the hamstring length for it. And also doing like a nice number 4 stretch to get the back of the hip, so you're just working your way around the whole hip. And then I like to kind of rock that back and forth as well, because that will change the area that you get a stretch. You know, inner thigh stretches, I also like to just put my foot up on like a wall or a chair, but it, again, depending what's available for you, you know, having your leg out to the side and just kind of going into the stretch there, you might get a little bit of an inner thigh or hamstring stretch. But what I was talking about is using a chair, you know, and propping my leg up on the chair there, and then just dropping into the stretch there, because I can work within a range of motion that's pretty comfortable. So there are so many hip stretches, but those are good ones. The thing is, sometimes you need to roll out before you stretch if it's really tight. So you can try taking a tennis ball into your stomach area, like by your hip bone. See if you can release your iliacus there. Getting on the inner thigh is a little tricky. You could try with like a rolling pin, or you can angle yourself. Actually, I can grab my phone out and show you, but it's awkward. But you can do it. You know, kind of rolling across that way, and see if you can get into the inner thigh there with a foam roller, or, oh, that feels really good, or a ball. So those are some strategies. I hope it helps. It always feels good to stretch the hips anyway, so enjoy.